So, Allen, you are based in Rome, but your work has certainly spanned much further than the Vatican. And after 3 decades, and I'm going to have a little tear in my eye here, after 3 decades here at CBS, you are retiring. I'm sure there's no tears for you. I'm sure you're fine with that. So we actually compiled a bunch of your most notable stories, and we want to play that and take a look.
There was a feeling here that perhaps only people who had grown up with something monstrous and then seen it reduced to insignificance could understand. To return to the old ways would be impossible now, one opposition leader said. It is significant and not a little ironic that those who suffered the longest under apartheid should struggle to be the first in line to vote it into history. The old passing their victory to a new generation. The horror had just begun. They joined a convoy of 6 buses heading for safety.
They killed people on the bus?
Yes.
Did you see them kill the people?
Yes.
Moussaoui denied any involvement in the attacks, and he said Americans did not understand that followers of Islam were willing to die for their cause.
This park was closed and research suspended for nearly 2 years because of the presence of another kind of guerrilla, those with guns entering Rwanda to commit genocide. Even getting here today requires a guard of up to 24 soldiers. The people of Beirut have to hope that the diplomats behind closed doors are nearer to a compromise than public displays would suggest. Allen Pizzey, CBS News, Beirut.
So, Allen, there we saw you in Bosnia, Lebanon, Beirut, Berlin. Obviously, you've had a front row seat to history, but there is one story that stands out for you, I'm told, and it's about that young girl that you spoke to in Bosnia. Can you tell us about her?
That's my favorite story in the whole world, yeah. We were going into Sarajevo, driving in from Split, and we heard about this refugee, so we thought we'd do a quick story. We met this little girl, and she was just going to be one element, but she so impressed us that we thought, no, this kid epitomizes everybody in this whole rotten, miserable, war-torn country. So we sat down and we got her to tell us her whole story. It helped that she was cute and could speak English. Then we called CBS in New York and said, look, we want to backtrack this kid's story. We want to forget Sarajevo for a few days. They said, okay. So we then went back to find her home in Prijedor, which was, she described in loving terms, which was actually a wreck. Then we found her father in the prison camp, in a cattle shed, 1,500 men locked up in a cattle shed. Persuaded them, the translator we had, persuaded them to let us interview him. We put the whole story together. She basically told the story. She became everyman for everyone who was suffering, all the civilians suffering in Bosnia. A chap in the States saw it. Many people called in. One in particular was put through to me, and he said, look, I have to help. So I said, yeah, you know, fine, that's a nice sentiment, but it's incredibly complicated. And I explained many, many things had to be done and forgot about it. 3 months later, Yasmina, her mother, her grandmother, and her father were all together in a transit camp with visas for the U.S. They now live in, Yasmina lives in Connecticut, is married, has a little child. It was a wonderful, wonderful, we did something, you know? It's my favorite story.
Yeah, that is a great story. Now, as I was watching sort of the montage there, it occurred to me exactly what Vlad said, that you witnessed so much of history. You know, sometimes when you're a reporter, you're sort of lost in the work that you're doing. You have a deadline, you know, there's all these sort of other pressures. Were you able at times to stand back and just kind of say, wow, this is cool?
Yeah, pretty much every day. You know, I can remember saying to somebody, God, they actually pay us to do this. They pay us money to do this. Yeah, it's been a wonderful life. I mean, you know, we don't write the first draft of history, as people say. We do scribble notes, and we get to see it. And I feel quite special and privileged to have done this. I've been a journalist for 43 years, 41 of them as a foreign correspondent, both in print and 36 years with CBS. And I really feel that I have been very, very privileged. Sometimes it's been bloody miserable, and sometimes awfully scary, and sometimes just, why am I here? But at the end of the day, every day pretty much, you sit down and say, wow, that was cool. That was truly wonderful. It's a life you know, I don't think I could have chosen anything better, and I kind of fell into it by accident, and I'm so glad I fell when I did.
Yeah, Allen, it's an important point that you raised, the idea that we get paid to do this and we get to witness things that a lot of other people don't get to witness, and we get to tell the world about them. But you've sort of seen in some cases, the most beautiful stories. For example, Nelson Mandela being elected in South Africa's first free election. But you've also covered horrific things like the Beirut bombing of the Marine barracks, where we lost 220 Marines. I remember as a kid seeing that story and just being horrified by that. How hard is it to live a life where from day to day you might see stories that are uplifting, but many, many times you see stories that are horrific, like, for example, Beirut or even Rwanda?
Yeah, Beirut, Rwanda, the Somalia famine, things like that. Yes, they're terrible, and if you don't feel it, if you don't have some kind of empathy with the people there, you're not going to be able to cover it. You won't be able to really tell their story, but you have to push that aside, because our job is not to share their pain. Our job is to make other people share their pain. I remember once having a cameraman who started to cry and put his camera down, and I said, please, you crying does no good. Let's make 20 million people cry. And he did. Did his job, and that's what we have to do. You know, I think we're all a little crazy. If you cover wars enough, you willingly do that. You've got to have a screw loose somewhere, and I think, and I don't know anybody who's been with me in these places that doesn't have, I guess we've had symptoms of PTSD, I don't know, but it's, you have to shove it aside, but also you have to feel it, but you have to put it aside, because that's your job, is to make other people feel, and I think that's what keeps people doing it. You know, if we do our job right, nobody can say we didn't know. Yes, you did, because we damn well told you so, and it cost everybody a lot, but we told you so. That's the gratifying part of it, I think, and that's what keeps people going. Plus, as you say, I see some absolutely wonderful, wonderful things. I mean, to be, 10 feet from a silverback gorilla and have him looking you in the eye and know that he could break your neck with one hand, but he's also looking at you with curiosity. You are related. That's pretty wonderful too. So, I can't complain, what the heck.
Allen, you said that you fell into this. I'm curious about your story. Did you not intend to be a journalist?
I sort of thought about it, but I did lots of things. I was a rock blaster. I actually had a high explosives license after university, which I studied business and didn't want to be in business. So I ended up by chance in South Africa, and I happened to be sharing a house with a guy who was a reporter, and I thought, hey, that sounds pretty cool. So I got a job selling advertising on the newspaper on the assumption that I could change departments, which wasn't quite that easy. But anyway, I managed to sort of blag my way, if you will, in a British expression, into a job, an interview with the editor, and he hired me. And then I was lucky to find people who took an interest in me, and after a couple of years I went from that newspaper in Cape Town to working for a news service that was owned by the group of papers that covered Black Africa, and I worked for the most wonderful editor I've ever worked for, a man named Wilf Nussi. He taught me things. 4 years of that, I freelanced in what was then Rhodesia till it became Zimbabwe, and then again, by chance, CBS was looking for somebody in Johannesburg, and a cameraman I knew said, oh, let me do a camera tape for you and send him a CV. So I did and forgot about it, and strangely enough, they hired me. And I liked it. I really liked television, and so everything was a bit of, oh, here's something interesting, let's try that, I guess, and it all worked out. It's been great.
Allen, before we let you go, I have to ask you, before I went on my first foreign assignment, a mentor of mine said, he gave me the title of this book, and I think it's out of print, but I want to get your take on it, because you've been in this business for so long, and this is an older book. He said, you don't want to be that journalist who wrote the book and said, has anybody here been raped and speaks English? Talking about some of the challenges that foreign correspondents, the challenges that foreign correspondents face sometimes, even in the days before social media and before the internet.
I think it was more fun before social media and the internet. I think maybe we did, in a way, you did maybe a better job, because I often landed in places where I had no idea what was going on other than what I took in the way of clippings from newspapers, what was in my head, and all I could report was what I saw in front of me. That's what we did in those days. And then, somehow you got your copy back on a telex. I bet people don't even know what that is anymore. Or you put when I started in TV, we used to sometimes put the videotape in an onion skin bag and send it, in case of Beirut, to another country to be satellited out.
Wow.
So you didn't have all this other input. Yeah, the challenges were there. I think I know who actually said anyone here been raped and speaks English, but it's only a rumor. I've never confirmed it. But apparently somebody actually said it. It was in the Congo in the 60s.
That's what I heard too, in the Congo.
Yeah, we're a pretty callous bunch at the end of the day, I guess. I have to say. Yeah. I think we're a pretty callous bunch, but we all have hearts somewhere in here. Otherwise, you couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Allen Pizzey, for us, Anne-Marie and I can speak for both of us, it's just an honor to have the opportunity to have worked with you at the same organization. We thank you so much for your years of excellent journalism for CBS News. It's been an honor.
We're going to miss you.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure and a hell of a privilege. It's been a hell of a lot of fun. So thank you too. I'm kind of sad to go, but sometimes the time is right, I think. So there we go.
Allen Pizzey from Vatican City. Allen, thank you so much.